Hello everyone, so Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 just came out, and I saw it the other day, so this is just my hopefully quick, or I'm going to try to make it as concise as I can. I don't want this to go on and on and on. Just basically my first impressions, and this will be podcast style, so there will probably just be a still image in the video space, so if that doesn't hold your attention, then keep that in mind. But yeah, this is more meant to be listened to. So I probably won't be discussing spoilers too much. However, I might a little bit, and so I'll just say before I do that. But anyway, to start out with, non-spoiler stuff, just kind of how I felt about this movie is that I liked this movie a lot, and pretty much every Marvel movie when it comes out, I say that, or Marvel thing for that matter. But yeah, I liked this. When the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie came out, I liked it quite a bit in the theater, and I was super excited for that movie too. Like, those trailers were really good, and that movie was one of the most anticipated movies for me, just out of any movie, upcoming movie, I guess. Guardians, the first one, Guardians of the Galaxy. And yeah, those trailers were really good and different, and it looked so quirky and interesting and weird, and I don't know, I latched onto that kind of off-kilter characters, and the humor in the trailers was also pretty decent. The movie, I mean, when I saw the movie, I was satisfied with it the first time I saw the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but on subsequent viewings, I enjoyed it less and less, and I noticed more and more problems, so I actually don't really like the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie that much. And a lot of it has to do with just me not finding the humor very funny at all in the first movie. Like, there were so many cringe-worthy jokes, like jokes where either the timing's off a little bit by the actors, or like the editing isn't quite as snappy enough, or it's just an awkward tonal shift, which that also happened quite a bit in the original movie, and there's a little bit of that here in Volume 2. There's a good amount of that. There's still, the humor, it's pretty much the same. I will say that I did, and maybe this is just because it's the first viewing for me, I did find more jokes funny in Volume 2 than I did in Volume 1, or than I do in Volume 1. But maybe that's just because it's my first viewing. But yeah, they still have bad jokes. So I think that is something that needs to be kept in mind, and they should actually get, like professional comedians or whatever to work on these jokes. I mean, James Gunn, I believe these are mainly James Gunn jokes, and I feel like if they had someone that was a little more familiar with comedy in general, not just like humorous writing, then I feel like that could step up the quality of the comedy in these movies. As far as does it kill the movie, no. The thing is, like, a pet peeve of mine, like something that can really bother me about movies is if there are really bad jokes. If there are cringe-worthy jokes, then that really bothers me about movies. Even though it's just like it's a line of dialogue, It just, I don't know, it's I guess a personal taste thing. It can kind of rub me the wrong way with a movie. But anyway, I feel like I'm giving the impression that I didn't really like Guardians Volume 2 with that with that being said. However, this movie does so much right, and it does a lot that is so cool and different. Like, I thought that we got a better understanding of each character, for pretty much all the Guardians. We got a better understanding of them. And, I wish that we had this level of, character progression as we did in the first Guardians movie. Because I feel like some of that either was sort of subtle or it wasn't really so much the focus of the movie. It was sort of, the movie was more so like, or the first movie was more so, we've got to get the orb. And then, one thing led to another, and characters learned stuff, and character development happened, but the character development that happened in this movie was more of what I wanted to see, more of the kind of thing that I wanted to see in the first movie. So I'm glad that we got it here, because there's a lot of cool stuff, and I feel like I got a better understanding for the types of people that these characters are in this MCU continuity, because I am somewhat familiar with the comics of, like, Guardians of the Galaxy and, like, the Abnett and Lanning kind of stuff. I haven't read all that Abnett and Lanning, like, Annihilation Wave? I think it's called Annihilation Wave. That whole, I guess, like, it's not really a run, but it's more like a continuous storyline over a couple different series that stand on their own, I suppose. And I guess not all of them are related to Annihilation Wave. But anyway. So yeah, I've seen some of that, and I'm actually kind of a Thanos fan, or I was reading a bunch of Thanos a couple months ago, like 6 months ago or so. And the Guardians, they show up in that stuff sometimes. I guess comparing the Guardians to the comics, I felt like Gamora was closer to her comics version, and I thought Zoe Saldana had an improved performance than in the first Guardians movie, because Gamora was the character that I probably had the most issues with and that I liked and was entertained by the least in the first Guardians movie. Like, I thought that Zoe Saldana was not the right choice for Gamora based on that movie. But I think that she does a better job here, and I also think that more interesting things are revealed about Gamora, and that's cool. And another thing about, just in general, what these characters are getting revealed about themselves, what's kind of interesting about it is a good amount of it is not pleasant. You get a better understanding for why these characters are sort of damaged, or at least why some of them are damaged in certain ways. I liked the villain a lot. I'm not gonna, I guess, say too much about that, because I was a little surprised at who the villain was. So that's pretty much all I will say, but I thought that it kind of challenged the Guardians in an interesting way. So that's good that that Marvel wrote up a cool new villain. And also, another thing is that the visual effects are incredible in this movie. Like, I love the style. The different planets that they go to a couple different planets, and the different technologies and like dimensions. It looks like Jim Starlin's art from that early, like, 70s Marvel cosmic comics, which those I've read a good amount of, like Thanos related stuff, some Adam Warlock. And that art it can be pretty crazy, kind of unhinged at some points. Yeah, they get that down really well. They make it look more psychedelic in this movie, and I liked that a lot. I thought that was an excellent choice just because it looks so cool. And I feel like the effects and the art style and like the psychedelic aesthetic of this, it's more so than Doctor Strange, you know? Like, after seeing this, I kind of wish that Doctor Strange had more of this awesome visual style to it. But, whatever. So another thing, I guess, is that this movie made me appreciate the first movie a little more. Like, I feel like I understand these characters a little better now, so going back and watching the first one, I feel like I'd appreciate what they're doing then, knowing this, However, I still think that these two movies should sort of stand on their own, but I do feel like that this movie is a really natural extension of the first one. Even though there's time in between the first Guardians movie and the second Guardians movie, I feel like the second Guardians movie, I feel like it builds upon the first one. For me, at least, in my understanding of the Guardians. So I think that putting the volume 2 instead of just 2 in the title was a good choice. And I also just think it's kind of, it fits with the mixtape theme and, the fact that Peter Quill likes music a lot, to have volume 2 instead of just Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And here's one more thing, and this is kind of spoiler stuff, so stop listening if you want to avoid, I guess, any more information about what's in the movie and what's not, because I'm going to talk about that a little bit here. Alright, so one thing that I was looking forward to, or I was thinking I might get to see, and I was interested in that going into this movie, was seeing some more Thanos stuff and, what his involvement would be. And he's actually not really in the movie. I mean, his two daughters, Gamora and Nebula, they're in the movie. They actually help illustrate his character, Thanos' character, a little bit better, or at least the MCU version of Thanos, which is cool. Not so much other stuff relating to Thanos in this movie, which is actually a really a good idea, I think. I think that these movies shouldn't get so caught up in trying to build up the next one. And I felt like that worked better for this movie in particular, because it was so focused on, like, family drama and, like, familial relationships and what those mean to the characters. That kind of Infinity War kind of stuff would have been potentially detracting from the main story that we have here, which is, very worthwhile, this story. So I think that it's important that they took it in the direction that they did. But yeah, not much Thanos, which is fine. But we do, and this is big spoiler again, but if you're listening to this, you probably are okay with that, or know that already, or maybe you've seen the movie. In one of the end credit scenes, there is Adam Warlock reference, so that's they sort of build, I guess, that up for Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War, probably. And I like Adam Warlock quite a bit, and he's important in Infinity War as well. So that should be cool. I feel like those gold dudes in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I feel like those were supposed to be the Church of Universal Truth, but they had to give it another name because they don't want to be controversial with religion and whatnot, even though there is some religious subtext throughout this film, which is also cool. But anyway, yes, another thing that I like about this movie is this movie takes risks and does things differently than some of the other Marvel Studios movies. Like they push themselves to keep mixing it up, trying to vary, I guess the plot and things that happen, things that types of things that haven't happened yet, in these MCU movies. They try a bunch of new stuff, and that's what I really appreciate with that movie. And yeah, a lot of risk. I feel like they improve on a lot of things from the first movie, but of course, they still have some shortcomings as well in this movie. Mainly, for me, it is just the bad jokes, and which there are quite a bit of, more than there should be for a comedy. Ant-Man is I think, the funniest MCU movie, and awkward tonal shifts as well in Guardians Volume 2, but less so than in the first one, so that's an improvement. And yeah, just overall, I really enjoyed this movie a lot, and thought that it was trying new stuff, and definitely wasn't a retread of the original. And, we learned more cool stuff about the characters. So, that's pretty much it. All my thoughts, so thanks for listening.